Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today, November 4th, I wanted to go through the 2024 electoral map, go through the remaining battleground seats we have, and just go with you some, I think, realistic scenarios for 2024 election night. Obviously, tomorrow's election day. If you have not voted yet or don't have a plan to get out and vote, make sure you get out and vote. This election is very, very close and your vote really does matter. So Kamala Harris and Tim Walz start off with 226 electoral votes after all the states that I have listed as safe or likely or lean are given to them. Donald Trump and JD Vance start out with about 219. So for the purpose of this video, I wanted to go through the electoral map and just talk about some of the states that are still toss-ups and how I think some scenarios could go on election night. The first state I want to talk about is the state of Georgia and its 16 electoral votes. Georgia is one of the earliest states to have its polls closed on election night. It closes at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and just by the process of which it counts its votes, Georgia should be one of the first toss-up states whose counts its votes the fastest, seeing as its poll closed the earliest. And right now, going off the polls in the state of Georgia, you can see that in Georgia, I'm going to go to the statewide map in a second as well. Trump currently has 49.3, Harris has 46.7. So actually, let me go to the bigger slide just to make it easier to see. Georgia, Trump has 49.3, Harris is 46.7. That is a lead of 2.6% of the vote. If this race was super close and under like 1% of the vote, I think there's a good chance we wouldn't be able to know what the results are in Georgia on election night. But if Trump is winning the state by 2.6%, there's a very good chance we do find out what the winner of the state is on election night, potentially maybe even before midnight for Georgia. So the state of Georgia right now, going through how it looks right now, it would suggest Trump is going to win the state of Georgia by over 1%, which would be a lean Republican win. So if that happens, assuming, again, this is all hypothetical, we won't know until election night, but if Trump wins the state of Georgia by about 2.6%, where do we go from here? Well, Trump will then have 235 electoral votes, Harris and Walz would have 226. The next state I'm looking at is the state of North Carolina. North Carolina, its polls close at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and this should be the second state that reports its votes the fastest, again, seeing as it starts out the earliest, and I believe does actually count its votes relatively quick compared to a lot of the other battleground states. Comparably to Georgia, North Carolina right now, Donald Trump is leading by 1.4%, so it is certainly closer than Georgia is, but the trend of polls from Atlas and Trafalgar did have Trump +4 and +3. Does that mean Trump's going to win North Carolina by 3 or 4 points? No, it doesn't. But if hypothetically Trump were to do that, we would find out pretty early on election night Trump is leading very large in North Carolina by 3 to 4 points. We'd probably know North Carolina before midnight as well. If it's Trump plus 1.4, we're probably not going to know until after midnight, seeing as how close the state is. But I just want to say, if Trump's at 235, Harris and Walz are at 226, let's say we give the state of North Carolina to Donald Trump. At this point, Donald Trump has won every state he's won in 2020, and he's flipped the state of Georgia. That gets Trump up to 251. Now it becomes very, very important, and one of the main scenarios I've talked about is how does Donald Trump reach 270 electoral votes? Trump's best path to reaching 270 involves winning North Carolina and Georgia, two swing states which do have a pretty lengthy track record of being Republican states at the presidential level, and then flipping what I consider the most Republican of the three toss-up battleground states in the Rust Belt, the state of Pennsylvania, and its 19 electoral votes. Donald Trump won this state in 2016, going to the presidential map. In 2016, Donald Trump won Pennsylvania by 0.72%, with 48.58% to Clinton's 47.85%. Looking at the polls right now in the state of Pennsylvania, Donald Trump currently has a lead at 48.2% to Harris's 47.6%. Now, again, we're obviously not going to know how this ends up until election night, but Trump is polling in Pennsylvania the highest he ever has in any of his last three elections, 2016, 2020, and 2024. This is the best Trump has ever polled in Pennsylvania. And the last time in 2020 in Pennsylvania, yes, some of the polls were off in Wisconsin and in Michigan a little bit. Pennsylvania's polls were actually exactly correct in the average in 2020. If that were to happen again, that would mean Trump would win the state by 0.6%, which, if that is the case, Trump would win the state of Pennsylvania. That would get him just enough to hit 270 electoral votes by winning the state of Pennsylvania. So I titled this video Likeliest Scenarios on Election Night. I think the first scenario and the most likely scenario right now, based on the polls, is Donald Trump reaches 270 electoral votes just by winning Georgia, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania. This doesn't even factor in Arizona or Nevada, two states where if you look at the polling right now, for instance in Arizona, Donald Trump is leading here by 2.4%, which is obviously a very good sign for him considering Joe Biden won the state in 2020. If you look at the state of Nevada, this is a state that Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton both won in 2020 and 2016. Donald Trump is leading here by 0.9%, and it seems that Trump is in a better position this time around than 2020 to win the state of Nevada. So it's possible Donald Trump could even reach 270 without needing those two states, even though he is ahead there. So the likeliest scenario right now could involve Trump reaching 270 electoral votes without these two states. But what is important to mention, though, is even if Trump does win Arizona by the margin he's leading right now, and Nevada by the margin he's leading right now, that gets him to 268. The problem for Trump is he still likely needs one of the three Rust Belt states, Wisconsin, Michigan, or Pennsylvania. And the problem is Trump will try and make Virginia competitive. He'll try to make Minnesota competitive. He may even try to make New Hampshire competitive to have him have options. But the fact is all three of those states are far more Democratic at the presidential level than Pennsylvania, Michigan, or Wisconsin. Trump's best bet, and I've said this all along, is to win the state of Pennsylvania. Because right now, recently actually, the state of Wisconsin is very, very close. But as of the time I'm recording this, Harris has pulled ahead by 0.2% in the state. It is incredibly, incredibly close. Wisconsin, Trump would love to win the state of Wisconsin, and depending on how the electoral map goes, Wisconsin may even be the state that puts Trump over 270 electoral votes. And here's what I mean by this. There's a scenario where Trump could win the election without winning the state of Pennsylvania. That's by winning North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, and then winning the state of Wisconsin. I have Nevada as red, but just for the sake of argument, you could take Nevada away. Trump would reach 272 by winning Wisconsin, North Carolina, Georgia, and Arizona. And the polls right now do have Harris narrowly leading in Wisconsin by 0.2%. In my own personal prediction, I do still have Donald Trump winning the state of Wisconsin. I think Trump is going to win the state of Wisconsin. But just for the sake of argument, even if Kamala Harris were able to win Pennsylvania and Michigan, Trump could still win by going Georgia, North Carolina, Arizona, and Wisconsin. The only difference is, technically, according to the polls right now, Harris does have a very slight lead in Wisconsin. And if you look at the polls in the state of Michigan, it is now a 0.5% lead for Kamala Harris in Michigan. I think this is still a very, very close state. Either candidate is capable of winning it. But right now, Harris does have a narrow lead here in the polling data. So let's say Wisconsin goes blue, Michigan goes blue. Trump is at 262, Harris and Walsh are at 251. Either one of them could win the state of Nevada. If Harris wins Nevada, that gets her to 257. Trump is at 262. If Trump wins Nevada, that gets him to 268. Harris is at 251. Not that Nevada doesn't matter, but the state of Pennsylvania is going to be the state that most likely decides the presidential election. And it's not just that it's very important to both of their paths and that Wisconsin and Michigan aren't, but given how close the polling is, technically Pennsylvania has the largest lead of the three Rust Belt states right now when you look at the polling. You look at 0.2 for Harris in Wisconsin, 0.5 in Michigan for Harris, 0.6 for Trump in Pennsylvania. I think it's more likely than not all three will vote the same way on election night, but regardless, Pennsylvania by 0.1% has the largest lead of the three Rust Belt states. And right now, Donald Trump is currently winning the state of Pennsylvania. So I think there's many pathways to victory on election night. I think the most likely pathway to victory right now involves Donald Trump winning Georgia, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania. If, let's say, the polls wrong or the polls change before Election Day and Kamala Harris pulls out a narrow victory in Pennsylvania, what does that mean for the election? Well, it means the election just got a lot tougher for Donald Trump. Donald Trump can still win the election if he loses Pennsylvania, but it gets a lot harder. Let's just say, hypothetically, Donald Trump still wins the state of Arizona by his 2.5 percentage points that he's leading right now. Without Pennsylvania, Donald Trump needs to win one of Wisconsin or Michigan. It's essential at this point. If Trump loses the state of Michigan, it's a blow to him, but he could still win by winning the state of Wisconsin, as I showed you a few minutes ago. If Kamala Harris wins the state of Wisconsin, that would get her to 270 electoral votes by winning the 3 Rust Belt states. It's virtually impossible for Trump to reach 270 without winning one of the 3 toss-ups. For Kamala Harris, it's essentially impossible for her to win without winning all of the 3 toss-up races. Because unless she wins Arizona and gets her to 281 and Trump wins Wisconsin, that's the only way Harris can win while also losing one of the Rust Belt states. But the way the polls are syncing up right now, and traditionally the way the elections have unfolded, it's very unlikely we're going to see Arizona blue and the toss-up and all the Rust Belt states be red. It's typical that the swing states usually vote somewhat in unison. Maybe 1 or 2 go the opposite way, but most of the time they vote pretty much together. So I still think the most likely scenario for election night right now, based on the polls and everything we've seen thus far, is Trump wins Georgia by under 3%, maybe a little bit more, but I think under 3%. Trump wins North Carolina under 2%. Trump wins Pennsylvania under 1%. That gets him to 270. For Kamala Harris, the likeliest pathway to victory, and I kid you not, is winning the state of Wisconsin, winning the state of Michigan, and winning the state of Pennsylvania. I think right now the only pathway to victory realistically for Kamala Harris is winning Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. And maybe at that point, if she is able to do this, she can tack on the state of Nevada. I don't think at this point Arizona and Georgia are going to go blue. I think they're pretty solidly Republican states at this time. Yes, it is realistic that Harris could win the state of North Carolina, but seeing as I voted for Donald Trump in 2020 in a Democratic environment, much more friendly than 2024 will be, according to all the polls, I have a very hard time seeing how North Carolina goes blue. I mean, I guess it is theoretically possible, but I just don't see it at this time. Harris's best pathway to victory is Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. So I would go on a limb and say if Kamala Harris is the winner of the 2024 presidential election, she's going to do it in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. If Donald Trump wins the presidential election, he's going to do it in Georgia, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania. I think those are the 2 likeliest scenarios right now for how each candidate wins. As for what I think is the likeliest scenario, I've said it a few times now. I think the likeliest scenario is Trump reaches 270 by winning Georgia, winning North Carolina, and winning Pennsylvania. I think that's how the election goes right now. Things could always change leading into the final few days, but I think given the way the polling is looking and the forecasts are looking, I think Georgia, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania gets Trump to 270 exactly. Then from there, we're going to see maybe Wisconsin goes red. Arizona, I think, goes red. That would get Trump to 281. We're looking at maybe Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan for how those go. I'm still pretty bullish that Nevada and Wisconsin go red. Michigan is so close right now. I could see it going red for Trump. I could see it going blue for Harris. I could really see that one going either way, but I think the fact is right now, yes, the election is very, very close. Either candidate is capable of winning it. Based on the most likely scenarios right now, I think Donald Trump is slightly favored to win this election more than Kamala Harris is. Not by an insurmountable margin, but I think based on these scenarios, Trump is most likely to win. So that's all I really have for you in today's video. I just want to go over those scenarios to give you some insight into something I'll personally be watching for on election night 2024. I'm going to be watching Georgia and North Carolina and Pennsylvania before all other states. So those are the 3 states I'm watching very, very closely because it's pretty simple. If Donald Trump wins Georgia, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania, barring an absolutely cataclysmic collapse in another state like Texas or Florida or Ohio or something, Donald Trump will be the next president of the United States if he wins those 3 states. If Kamala Harris wins one of those 3 states, we have a completely different ballgame, and this is a very, very close election that can truly go either way. If Kamala Harris wins 2 out of the 3, say North Carolina and Pennsylvania, if Harris can pull that off, win Pennsylvania, win North Carolina, it's 261 to 219. I would bet almost 100% Kamala Harris will be winning this election. So these 3 states are very, very important, and I'm watching before all the other states right now. So that'll do it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to get out and vote if you have not yet done so. You still have time to do it. Election day is tomorrow. Make sure you get out and vote in a very, very close presidential election. If you enjoyed this video, remember to give this video a like, click subscribe, share with your friends and family. Hope to see you in a future video, and happy election day. That will do it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to give it a like. And if you really liked it, please remember to click the subscribe button. And make sure you turn post notifications on so you always get notified when I post a new video. That way you never miss one. Also, please remember to share this video with your friends and family if you really like the video. And remember to stay tuned because I'll be posting at least one video every single day leading up until Election Day. So I'd really appreciate it if you keep coming back and watching those videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in a future video.